Thank you for joining us on the Winning at Selling podcast. I'm Professor Scott Plum of the Minnesota Sales Institute, and with me is Bill Hellkamp of Reach Development Systems.
If you've been in sales for any length of time, you've experienced a sales slump. It seems that no matter what you do, you just can't get anything to close. Or maybe you can't even get a sales process open. So what do? Well, you listen closely to this podcast as Scott and I discuss breaking out of a slump and other great ideas on episode 505 of the Winning at Selling podcast.
It's going to be a great topic, Bill. Looking forward to sharing some of my ideas, and I'm looking forward to hearing yours on how to get out of a rut. I used to have a program from rut to strut and how to get out of a rut. And a rut is just a grave with the ends kicked out, as I've heard many times. So we'll get to that after we cover the book. And we're deep into the book, Success Principles by Jack Canfield. We're finishing up part 1, principles 21 through 24. And I really love these latest chapters because they're short, they're concise. They really touch on points that I think are really important and make up the foundation of a successful salesperson and really adds a lot of clarification. So number 21 is keep score of success. And I think this is really the essence of what KPIs are and leading indicators versus lagging indicators. And we really need to look at what are the things that we can control and what are the things that we cannot control. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right. And too many sales managers only focus on the lagging indicators. And what we mean by lagging indicators is how many sales did you close? That's the laggingest of lagging indicators.
Right.
And it's very difficult. You can measure it,
sure,
but it's certainly hard to manage to it. And so what are some of the indicators, those leading indicators, Scott, that you would have them manage to?
I would look at how many attempts are they making, how many conversations are they getting into, how many quotes or proposals they send out, and then how many commitments they get on a weekly basis, not a monthly basis. A monthly is important, but every week. Too often, I think a lot of sales managers look at annual goals and they look at annual production.
And then all of a sudden they're behind and they have to catch up.
They got to cram for a harvest. And Covey talks about that, cramming for a harvest. And I met with one company and the sales manager said, I don't care what they do during the day, as long as they make their number. And I said, what happens if they're in the 10th month and they're at 50% of their goal? Well, they better hustle up then.
Yeah, hustle up. That's go get them, Tiger.
That ain't going to work. That ain't going to work. And all those opportunities in the past are gone and we can never get them back. I mean, it's you're selling rooms in a hotel, heads on beds. You never get that time back once it's gone.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you talk about weekly, I really think the rhythm of life is weekly. It's even a mistake to just look at your team monthly, because I think it's really easy when you look at things monthly and you drive them on the 30th and the 31st, close some deals. We got to get these closed. What do they do on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd? Well, they sit around exhausted. Yeah. Not knowing what to do and thinking, oh God, I got 4 weeks before he beats me up again to close a bunch of stuff. So now I'll take the next 3 or 4 days off. Every day needs to be a value day. You can't have a crushing need one day and then the next day, nothing to do. Every day it's the calls that you make. It's the sales. I heard one speaker, very successful business coach. He said, if you just make 3 calls every day and never miss, it would revolutionize your business. 3 new calls. And I think that's absolutely true. Many people, I'm going to make 20 calls. They don't make any. Then I'm going to make 40 calls and they don't make any. Right. And by the time 3 weeks are gone, they've made 4 calls. They've had nothing built up. They got nothing in the hopper and they're sitting around shaking their head. So it all starts with the call and having a good score book, having that good chart, whatever that chart is, that they can check off and say, I did my 20 calls, and then it's okay. Now I can relax. Now, Scott and I are looking at working with some very new salespeople for a client that we're working with. It might be 60 or 70 calls the first couple of weeks a day until they start having appointments that fill their time. But if you got nothing else to do, you might as well be on the phone.
And realistically, 50 calls a day is very possible. I work with some salespeople and I say, we're going to have a power hour. Well, what's a power hour? A power hour is you get your list of all of the prospects that are in your universe that are a perfect fit to the product or service that you sell, and you commit to calling one after another. And whether you get the voicemail or a conversation, you make as many calls as you possibly can. Focus on just cold calling within that 1 hour. And I've had salespeople tell me that they have made 20 attempts And in some cases, they even had conversations, but 20 attempts within that 1 hour. You take 1 hour, 8 hours a day, you can do the math. You can easily do 50 calls in one day. And
That's right.
very, very possible.
Yeah, I did some work with technical people, computer people, and they call those sprints. And they say, okay, for the next 40 minutes, we're going to do this. And everybody get down and really pump as hard as you can. And we'll do this sprint, and then we'll have a break and we'll have a soda or whatever. But everybody sprints and they try and get something done, whether it's a morning or whether it's a couple of hours or whatever. Let's see what we can rack off of this list in this sprint. And it's just amazing how, well, think about it, right, Scott? We're pushing ourselves into a place where it's 2 days before your vacation.
Oh, geez.
How effective are you in those 2 days when you know you've got to take a week off and you got all this stuff's got to get done?
I'm very effective, and I'm doing 12-hour days, making sure I get everything done.
That's right. And you're very efficient. So no goofing off, because I got to get all these done before Friday. So keep score for success. Number 22 is practice persistence. And what this one made me think of, Scott, was the old book, Acres of Diamonds, because he's talking about how close are you to a breakthrough? And are you willing to keep applying the pressure, or do you close it off and quit right before you hit that vein of gold? And the Acres of Diamond book is about a man who was searching for diamonds, and he searched everywhere, and he sold his house because he couldn't afford to look anymore. And somebody bought the house, and they found the biggest diamond mine in his backyard.
Yeah.
So where are you looking for those diamonds? And I think that Acres of Diamonds is a great old story.
Yeah, I love the first sentence in this chapter. Persistence is probably the most single common quality of high achievers. And it's so true. You have to be persistent. You have to be determined. The first chapter in my book, Taking Off Into the Wind, is commitment. I did a program in front of 80 people on Monday. It was fabulous. First time I've done a program in front of people in years. And the topic was control the controllables.
Right.
And like in chapter 21 is our leading indicators, control the controllables. And I had an exercise where I wanted everybody to pick 3 words that they want to use to describe that their customers or coworkers would use to describe them in their absence, and then figure out how do you action those words. And I think with the sales team, persistence has got to be one of those words.
Yeah, you just can't give up. And I think earlier in the book he talked, and maybe it was another book we read, I forget, I get them all mushed together.
Yeah.
But
I think it was Earl Nightingale.
Well, sales happen after the 10th call, and most salespeople give up after the 3rd or 4th.
Right.
So you've just got to, I think it's always better to work from a smaller list that you call on a regular basis. I've really narrowed my client list or my possibility list down to about 200. And I call them on a regular basis and build my business from those ones that I want to work with. So I don't have 2,000. It's too big.
Right. Totally agree.
All right. What's the next one?
Number 23 is practice the rule of 5. And you touched a little bit about this earlier when we're covering chapter 21, is the 3 meaningful activities every single day. If you bump it up to 5, and these are leading indicators, perform 5 meaningful activities every single day, and eventually they will compound and you will get the results that you want.
Yeah, I think knowing what your productive activities are is very crucial. And we spend a lot of time in non-productive activities. I call them taking out the trash, right? It looks productive. It feels like I did something, but it really wasn't of value. So I can be productive and not doing something of value. Make sure those 5 things or 3 things or whatever, and usually they're the things you have to do every day.
Exactly.
Right. They are my daily, they should be the top 5 things on my list. And then the big projects and other things have to be put in there too. But I have got to commit to those 5 things, 30 phone calls, following up. Sometimes it's just calling 5, maybe it's calling 5 current customers and just saying hi, whatever those things are, sending out letters, whatever those things are for you, put that list down and figure out those 5. And if you find one isn't being productive, change it, find a new one.
Right. Great. Number 24, go ahead. Any more?
Oh, yeah. Exceed expectations.
Yeah.
There's some great stories in this about going the extra mile and really paying off with client satisfaction, personal satisfaction, the ability to show leadership. It's doing stuff that people don't expect. And I have a course I have called Resource Selling, which is for salespeople that maybe they only have 100 or 200 customers and they keep calling on them all the time. And one of the things we talk about is how can you exceed expectations? How can you do something that they don't expect? Because maybe it's throwing in a hat into the order, or a note into the order, a couple of free things, or sending them a birthday card, or whatever those things are that they don't expect from you. That's when their antenna goes up and they go, wow, I really like doing business with this person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that going beyond the expectations always delivers greater value. And I like the line, and I shared this on Monday with the group that I was in front of, is to be reactive to problems and proactive to goals. And when we're reactive to problems, that means that it's a sense of urgency. We've got to be able to address it quickly because it's a problem, but we can be proactive on working with our customers and clients on achieving their goals. And we all know that it's going to save a company and a client and a customer money when they're proactive on achieving their goals versus reactive on fixing problems. And we know that just in our personal experiences on some of the challenges that we've had to pay for. It's a lot easier to pay for an oil change every 4 months or 6 months than it is to replace an engine.
As Fram Oil says, you can pay me now or you can pay me later.
Exactly.
But you're going to pay for this, whether you do maintenance or not. And we need to maintain ourselves, right? I think that's the important thing about developing. I'm going to go to a meeting tomorrow. You go to regular meetings all the time to learn things from other people that we may not know. And I just think if you're not out there, and maybe this was last week, he talked about, being the kind of person that's always trying to get better, but that's one way to exceed expectations at your job. Go out and take a course on your own, read a book, talk to your supervisor about it. Tell them what you're learning. Maybe the whole group needs to learn something new in sales that you can bring to a sales meeting. So what are you doing to change not just your expectations, not just what's happening for you, but for your whole company?
Right. The continuous learning. It's so important. Otherwise, the market changes and the people don't, and the people get left behind because the market changed. And it's just simple. I mean, you got to really be able to be continuously keeping up as the market changes. So next week, we're going to start part 2, Transform Yourself for Success, chapters 25 through 29. And we're going to be talking about that on the next episode.
I'm looking forward to that. I started to read those already, so they're good.
Oh, good.
It's as good as part 1, so.
Yeah, fabulous. We'll keep it going. This segment is brought to you by The Art of Prospecting, your guide to get in the door by Steve Kloida.
I'm Ron Lehman, and I want to tell you about one of the best sales books I've ever read. The Art of Prospecting, your guide to get in the door, gives you the tools and techniques to fill your pipeline and achieve more sales success. The author is Steve Kloida, known as the prospecting expert, and this book proves it. So if you want to learn from the master, get The Art of Prospecting, your guide to get in the door. It's available at theprospectingexpert.com. Just click on the Buy Book button.
All right. Well, our topic today is breaking out of a slump. Scott called it breaking out of a rut, but I'm not sure it's the same thing. I think a rut I can be in a rut and even be successful in that rut, but doing the same thing over and over again. I've known plenty of successful people that hate their job and they just feel they're in a rut and there's nothing going on different. I've seen marriages that can be in a rut. That we're just doing the same thing. My wife said something to me the other night. We got to, go out and do something different. I'm sick of, watching TV after dinner. So do something different. But I think the slump is when no matter what I do, I just can't get out of it. And I'm a baseball fan. I've been a baseball fan for a long time. And when I see batters get into slumps, they've got to change some things to get out of it. They've got to maybe go back to some of the basics, change the way they're thinking about things. So that's what I want to talk about is when we think we're doing everything right, and yet we're not getting the results that we want. And so let's talk about that a little bit. I have 3 changes that people need to make, and I'll highlight those or preview those. Change your attitude, change your association, and change your work habits. So anytime you want to bump in here, Scott, and give me some advice on these.
Why don't you share your 3 and then I'll share my 3 and then we won't confuse our listeners. How's that?
All right. Well, we'll confuse our listeners anyway. It's what we pride ourselves on. Yeah. So
it's one way of getting emails and feedback from our audience.
That's
right.
Let's
confuse them.
Well, I'm going to give you, what I do is I'm going to give you 3 ideas and I give you 2 and then they call me. So, all right. So change your attitude. Number 1, I think we need to focus on our strengths. When we are in a slump, when we're feeling bad, we tend to get into the blame game or the woe is me or the I can't do this anymore type of thing. And we've got to replay the videos in our minds of the times we've gotten hold of a new client, we've gotten an appointment with them, and we've closed the deal with them. Replay those success videos in your mind. Those will help you focus on what you're good at and do more of what you're good at and less of what you're not good at. So quit spending so much time. I know John Maxwell talks a lot about do the things you're good at. You can't be inept, in some areas. You've got to be okay, but you should be playing to your strengths. So I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Number 2 thing to change your attitude is to spend time with optimistic people. And that's not always salespeople.
Right.
It's not always your boss. Find some people. There's a club out there called, what's it called, Scott?
The Optimist
Club. And that's one of their goals because they saw that they didn't want to spend time with negative Nellies, right?
Right.
And so they wanted to have optimistic people who are talking about things are going to get better and I can do it. And so you need to associate with people who say, hey, Scott, you can do this.
Right. They got a creed that kind of goes through everything. I'm a member of the Roseville Area Optimist Club. They haven't thrown me out yet.
All right. Number 3, control what you think and more importantly, what you say. Don't let yourself verbalize those thoughts of failure that come through your mind. Right. Too often we tend to let those words have value. Oh, I can't do this. I'm not any good at selling. I hate making phone calls. My clients don't want to talk to me. Nobody's buying this stuff. And when we give voice to those things, when we say them out loud, now we hear them too, and they become more real.
Yeah, I don't even think we need to say them out loud. 85% of our self-talk is negative. And we weren't raised with somebody saying that we deserve something. We weren't raised with the positive affirmations. We were raised more with the criticism. And that's fortunate that we internalize that.
Number 4, act confidently. Sometimes I know you don't like to fake it till you make it, but I have found that if I walk faster, I talk a little louder.
Exactly.
I put myself forward in a little bit more confident way. All of a sudden, I'm feeling more confident. It's kind of like if you ever heard are you a thermostat or a thermometer?
Yeah.
Right? Do you reflect the temperature around you like a thermometer, or do you control the temperature around you like a thermostat? So I think that acting confidently sometimes can, especially when you get up in the morning, you're kind of getting those initial, I don't feel like, you got to change your mindset right then and there.
Right.
And then number 5 for change your attitude is know where you're going. Have a goal, know what that goal is, and shoot for that goal. Just as Scott and I were talking about earlier in the podcast, if you've got your vacation coming up, all of a sudden you get focused. So get yourself focused on that goal. Do the activities that will get you toward that goal. So that's the attitude part that I wanted to talk about.
Good stuff.
Number 2, major point, change your association. Now we talked about a little bit with control or associate with optimists, but I think who's in your network? Who are the people you can call, right? Alcoholics Anonymous says, when you're not feeling good, you're feeling you're going to fall, call somebody who can help you. You can do the same thing in sales. When you're not feeling good about yourself, well, you can call on a customer who loves you. You got a couple customers out there who like you. They're part of your network. Talk to them. And they go, oh, Bill, it's so good to hear you. And, let's talk. And you can talk about what's going on with them as a client. And that helps build that association and that value. I think you should reassess your model client if you're in a slump. Who am I really trying to talk to? Maybe that model client has changed a little bit over the years. Certainly the COVID pandemic has caused a lot of change in business. Maybe your model client has morphed a little bit. Maybe they aren't in at the office, and so you can't see them. Maybe they're working more remotely. Maybe they're working out of Hawaii or something, and now you don't see them anymore. So what's that model client? Who is it you want to be talking to, and how can you build that business more effectively? Another change of association is start to focus on the companies you want to penetrate. So quit having everybody be a prospect. Start to narrow down. I know what my model customer is. Now, what are the companies that employ that kind of person, and what's their title? And so really think about those companies, because what you're trying to do when you break out of a slump, I'll tell you, it's a lot easier to break out of a batting slump if you have a crummy pitcher pitching. If you have Nolan Ryan pitching at you, well, you're going to be in trouble. So you want somebody who's throwing up some meatballs for you. You want to get your dad out there or something who throws up something you can really hit. So spend time with the companies you really think you have a chance with. And then finally, to change your association, leverage LinkedIn. Go back to your LinkedIn, start looking at who you're associated with, and see if they have any leads for you that can become warm leads. Because by changing your association, you can warm up those leads, and warm leads have a better chance of getting appointments and then closing those appointments. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love the first part. Change your network. I love the saying, you cannot change the people around you. You can change the people around you. Mm-hmm. And I've stepped up my game recently and joined Vistage, and that is a group where I am being associated with CEOs of other companies, and I'm stepping up my game. Right. And I tell you, I got much different conversations when you end up talking to people that are a little further along in their career and taking a serious role in their organization.
Well, sometimes too, we end up talking with clients at a certain level, but when we get into a group like that, we can talk at a higher level.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly what
As
I'm
you say, they change the conversation. We're not trying to sell them anything. We're just trying to associate with them differently. So that's great. All right. My number 3, change your work habits. And I think this is a big part of what you would advise. Mm-hmm. Redefine your goals. Are your goals not important to you anymore? Is this company not important to you anymore? Should you be working for somebody else somewhere else? So really look at yourself and say, am I not doing this because I'm not excited about it anymore? And so I can't get customers because they can feel my lack of enthusiasm for this product or service that I'm selling. Are my goals not big enough? Am I, as a friend of yours, am I making my goals by March and I don't have a yearly goal? I'm not excited by it anymore. So what can I do to redefine my goals? Are my goals, are my desires, are the things I want to do, are they pulling me toward better work habits, or am I satisfied because I get things done quickly? So maybe I have that list of 5 things we talked about earlier, mm-hmm. and I have it done by 9:30 in the morning. Well, you might need to change your list.
Right.
The next one is increase your most valuable activities. So that's what we're just talking about. You're not having appointments, so you should be doing a lot more phone calling, doing a lot more going back to your old clients, a lot more networking. So what are those, that list of 5? Start to do more of those most valuable activities. And then number 3 in change your work habits, work with a coach. I don't know any professional who can analyze effectively what they're doing wrong. And Scott and I have both coached hundreds of people, and we can see a lot faster than you can what you're doing wrong and give you effective steps to changing it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't go as far as saying they're doing anything wrong. They're just doing an activity that's not delivering them the results that they want and not taking them to the place that they want to be.
And that's because you're nice, because I would say you're doing it. If you're not getting the results, you're doing it wrong. So folks, let's not.
If you want a coach, talk to Bill about being your coach, because tell you what, you're going to be online.
Let's not be so. We get too nice in our world of supporting everybody's feelings. And I'm not going to be mean to you, but I think we can move much faster if you don't have to have me beat around the bush and tell you, oh, well, that was a nice try. Hey, try saying this. It might be more effective. Right. And sometimes we just say things wrong, or we're approaching things, or we can't even hear our own voice how that voice sounds. My voice probably sounds really mean right now. They'll be calling Scott instead of me, but
no, they won't.
But
the sales managers are going to send him to you.
Scott will say, "Oh, he's a Minnesotan,
that was a nice try.
So,
if you had a chance
you did a good.
Again,
try harder now. If you've ever heard Fargo, for those of you far out, Scott and
far out.
You sure are trying. I grew up in the military. I have a little bit different attitude toward things than Scott does. All right, but work with a coach. Whether it's me or Scott, we've both done it a long time. We've done this for many years, and we can analyze these things for you or for your employees much quicker. And we have some very value-added services that we can do to get you started for just a few $100s. So,
yeah.
All right, Scott,
it starts with a conversation. Let's start there and not take their money until we know we can work together.
Oh, see, I'll take your money and then we'll figure out if we can work together.
All right. My 3 things are: first, look at the past and determine where was the downturn, what happened where you started to not get the results that you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And then look at what were you doing that made you more productive. So I've gone through this in my life, looking at when I was most busiest, when did I have the most activity, when did I start the most conversations, when did I create the most interest and curiosity with the prospects, with my marketplace, etc.
Right.
And it was when I was writing every single week, at least a 500 word or 750 word blog, and I'd put it out on an email and I'd send it out. And then I'd ask myself, third, what stopped? What did I stop doing? What prevented me from being productive? What was I yielding to and giving time and energy to that caused me to become distracted from the productive activity that I was performing? And it was awakening. Gosh, it was just awakening. And
was it when you started doing a podcast?
No, it's happened years ago. This was probably 20 years ago when I first went through this process. And at that point, I decided, what are my priorities? Bill talked about your goals. You have to look at what are your priorities. Your priorities may change in life. And here's a great saying: when your values are clear, your decisions are easy. And when your priorities are clear, your decisions are easy. So think about what's most important in your day, focus on what's most important, and your decisions are easy.
Right.
I'm listening to a lot of Jim Rohn, for those of you that know Jim Rohn. Your positions are easy. It really stretches that out. But I always think that sometimes getting an attitude change is important, but sometimes it's tough to change an attitude. I want to reinforce what you said earlier about, really committing to the activities, really committing to the behavior, really committing to getting on the phone and talking to people. And it's amazing how you can feel when you hit that one prospect that you've never talked to before. You have a meaningful conversation with them, and just a spring in your step and a gleam in your eye when you're done with that, because you delivered something that you wanted to achieve. You achieved the expectations. You had a great outcome of that. And it only was because you committed to your behavior. Your behavior will change your attitude. I always ask people, when they call me and they say, "Hey, how do you work with somebody like me?" And I said, "Well, I do this, that, and the other thing." And they go, "Well, I think I'm going to do it myself." And I said, before you go, let me ask you one question. What are you going to do tomorrow that you're not doing today that's going to give you the results that you want that you currently don't have? Silence. I get nothing from them.
Right.
Because they
can't analyze it. It's so hard to analyze yourself.
Well, the person that created the problem can't fix the problem.
Right.
The person that tolerates the problem can't change the outcome.
Right.
So you really need to talk to somebody outside of it.
If you're having problems getting going, try a sprint, as we were talking about.
Right.
Grab that hour and just work as hard as you can for that hour. I think so much of our problem, often when I'm not doing well, is I'm just kind of wandering aimlessly instead of really focusing on those goals and those things I need to do, those activities I want to do, and really getting them done. So that can be a real way to energize yourself, is to do those sprints, do those hour-long phone things, then give yourself a rest and do something else and do them a couple more times in the afternoon. So,
and the reason I think that these are so important, these sprints or power hours, whatever you want to call them, is that your mind is 100% focused on being in tune with the activity you're performing, and you're not multitasking.
That's
you have
right.
really tuned your brain up to be able to be on 100%. All the energy is focused on talking to people that you don't know, asking questions, and energy listening. spending energy listening to the answers and not being distracted by all the other stuff going on.
Which means you don't go and do a couple of emails in the middle of it. You don't take a phone call in the middle of
coffee,
it. That's right.
No, water bottle.
Get everything ready and you sit down and you bust it for an hour.
Yeah. And you go, look what I did within that 1 hour. What an accomplishment. I mean, you accomplished something. Right. It's measurable.
That's right. All right, cool. Great. Other ideas for getting out of that rut or out of that slump?
I think, you'll never change your life until you change something that you do daily. The secret of success is in your daily routine. And I think that came from John Maxwell. And I just think that it's really important, like you said earlier, play to your strengths. I mean, look at what you are really good at. When you concentrate on your strengths and you manage your weaknesses, you're going to have a better outcome than trying to spend time improving weaknesses when you're not going to be competent enough to be able to leverage your weaknesses to get the return that you want. Concentrate on your strengths.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Well, you guys you got our best stuff right there on getting out of a slump. Scott, I know you're going to have a resource that you're going to have on the show notes page.
Yeah, it's going to be, I know that I'm stuck and what to do about it is a blog post that I did many years ago. So you can click on that. And
I have a blog post also called Stay Mentally Strong When Sales Are Weak. So we'll have links to both of those on the show notes.
Golden nugget today is the major value in life is not what you get. The major value in life is what you become. Excellent. By Jim Rohn. I just love Jim Rohn stuff.
Well, when we really think we're trying to build a better us, right? Mm-hmm. And every time we do good, hard work, we get better. I'm very worried about these ideas of universal basic income, where we pay people just for being. I don't think there's anything more damaging to a person than to get money for not doing work. And I think on both ends of our economic spectrum, whether it's the very poor or the very rich, these children come out of their homes not associating money and work together. And I see that. I live in a fairly wealthy neighborhood, and I don't know any kids that actually mow their parents' lawn. But they all get an allowance, you know. So it's crazy. All right. So yes, what do you become as a result of it? I think that's really cool. All right. Excellent, Scott. All the show notes are at winningatselling.com. All the information's there. So look for it.
Next week, we're going to be talking about the fear of change is going to be the topic. And we're going to be covering chapters 25 through 29 from the book, The Success Principles.
Go out and get better, one skill at a time.
Joyful selling.